Hey everybody, and welcome to Getting Your Track Ready to Mix here on Groove 3. In this series, we're going to explore lots of information about preparing your session for mixing and ways to ensure your mixing process will go as smoothly and efficiently as possible. First thing I'd like to mention is that we're going to be going through this series under the assumption that you're sending your project out to be mixed by a professional mixing engineer. However, even if that's not the case and you plan on mixing your own tracks in your own studio, just about everything we talk about in this series is still relevant information that will help your mixing process go more smoothly. So if you're mixing your own track, I suggest you think of it this way. You are your mix engineer, but you have a slight advantage over people sending their tracks to a separate mix engineer because you already know what your song consists of and what you hope to achieve. So you may have to be slightly more selective over which of these steps might be overkill for your particular scenario. But I have to stress that almost every step in this series is still worth considering and will help you prepare your song for mixing. It's also worth mentioning before we start that I'm going to be using Pro Tools Ultimate for this tutorial series. However, we're going to try to make this as cross-platform as possible. So even though there will be some minor differences in how these techniques are done from DAW to DAW, the techniques themselves are completely universal. So, what are we covering in this course? Well, we're going to talk about the information you need to gather from your mix engineer and what the expectations are on both sides. We're also going to talk about naming conventions, numbering and or applying prefixes to the track names. We're going to discuss what constitutes as editing and should be done before the mixing process, and we're going to talk about fades and crossfades to make sure we don't have clicks and pops at the starts and stops of each clip. We're also going to discuss the differences between sending tracks and sending stems, and why you might opt for one over the other. And of course, we're going to go over the ins and outs of finalizing our session, consolidating the tracks, and what export settings and file formats will give you optimal results when exporting stems or tracks for mixing. Then we're going to create a tempo map that contains all the vital information of your session. And finally, we're going to learn how to organize our folder structure so the mix engineer can open it up, know exactly what they have, drop it in, and get straight to work. Because really, we want to eliminate any and all guesswork from the mixing process. Bottom line here is good organization and good communication with your mix engineer will lead to better results 100% of the time. So that's everything for this video. In the next two videos, we're going to be going over some of the prerequisite knowledge that's going to be needed for this series. So the first few videos will be formatted a little differently, but then in video number 4, we're going to get right into the nitty-gritty as we start digging into an actual session to get ready for mixing. In the next video, we're going to be talking about understanding mixing because you can't really understand how to get a song ready to mix until you understand the process of mixing, what it is, what it isn't, and where it typically sits in the whole production process. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in number 2.